We did everything from hiking, backpacking up the tallest mountain in Honduras, to literally biking from coast to coast over the course of a week. We would do service learning trips to the city where our students from Honduras are serving other parts of Honduras. So it just the amazing experiences. I have a plethora of stories that just show kind of the impact, I think, of those experiences for those kids. But so going back to kind of the entrepreneurial side, I think that sparked in me a lot of, how do you start something and sustain it? My role kind of shifted today. I do a little bit more of helping support some of our leaders who have a similar vision as Urban Promise, for making an impact in their communities. And so we started a few years ago, we started a program called the Urban Promise Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, where we invite leaders from across Latin America to come spend a year with us in Honduras. They get plugged into our programs, so they're kind of volunteering in the after-school program with the kids, with the youth, urban trekkers. My favorite, a little bit biased. But they're also gaining a lot of executive level leadership skills. And so they're learning what it takes to form a board together, how to fundraise, how to create a strategic plan, how to create and maintain a group of volunteers or staff. And so they're learning both the programmatic side of how to invest in their communities, but they're also kind of learning that leadership side, how to think sustainably and for the long term. And our hope is really that as these leaders graduate from our programs, and they've gone on to launch ministries now in other parts of Honduras, Colombia, and southern Mexico, our hope is that impact will last. We know that they're doing amazing work already with the kids and youth in their communities. They've taken their vision and they've already brought it to life. It's amazing to see. And we're also challenging them to think as an entrepreneur, to think, how can I create sustainability, creating partnerships with churches, businesses, other organizations. Some are creating little clothing stores, selling clothing secondhand to generate income, selling some of the local crafts and artistry in their communities, and looking for ways to kind of raise money through sales back in the States. So we're trying to help them think in those ways as well. And it's something that's always a work in progress. And our hope is, to really see vibrant communities across Latin America where young people thrive by investing in those entrepreneurial leaders who have a Christ-like heart.
That is awesome. I feel like obviously we prayed, but people don't know that. I say obviously, we always pray before we get on, but the multiplication process of that, there's just so much good seed that's being planted and then given out to those other communities. It's really amazing and biblical, which is why I think discipleship, it's ultimately what it is. It's a discipleship program for entrepreneurs to be able to do what you've done, but also do what God has put inside of their heart. So to be able to kind of tweak that to their own vision. I'm curious, as you are working with them as well as with the students and all of that, I think what intrigues a lot of people about going to other countries and investing in other communities is there seems to be, in my opinion, just a move of God. God moves in such a different way, and he's not moving differently. He moves the exact same way here. We just don't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear. We're also very comfortable here. So our yearning for God comes in really only selfish desperation rather than circumstantial desperation. And so can you tell us either a story or process through what have you seen that is variable to when you come home to versus when you're there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So now I live in the States, and I travel back and forth to visit our site, mostly in Honduras, but also some of our other affiliates. And I mean, those trips are just reminders of what I got to see in the time that I lived in Honduras. There are some amazing leaders that I get the privilege to work with who truly seek the Lord in all that they do, who live out following Jesus in their own personal, quiet, private life, but also in their life with the kids, their life in community. I think of one of our leaders her name is Carmen. Carmen has been on staff in Honduras for, I want to say, 5 or 6 years now. She started as like a vacation camp director during vacation time, and then came on board as a full-time staff member as an assistant director to our youth program. She eventually took over as the youth director, but then, so her husband is from the city of San Pedro Sula. And for those who don't know, San Pedro Sula is probably the city that you may hear about the most when you hear about Honduras, when it's referring to a lot of the violent crime rate, is centered around the bigger cities. And San Pedro used to hold the title of the most violent city in the world.
Wow.
And so it's since violence has gone down, but still remains high gang activity, a lot of drug trafficking happening in that area. And Carmen's husband is from San Pedro, and they a couple years ago had kind of felt like God was leading them to move back to San Pedro. And Carmen kept talking to her husband. She's like, you need to apply for this fellowship program. Like, I really think you need to start something in San Pedro. We're going back. Like, urban promise, you love it. And so she kept kind of pressing her husband, and then she was praying one day, and all of a sudden she said, I heard God's voice say, Carmen, I want you to start something in San Pedro Sula. And she, she is somebody who I have a lot of respect for, just in her humility, but also her boldness in the way she leads our youth, but also just the way she talks about the Lord with other people. She has a heart for this city that was just her husband's, and now is her and her husband. Carmen went through our fellowship program. She really sacrificed a lot. She stepped down from her role as youth director. Her husband had to move back to San Pedro early for job, for income. They had 2 young girls. And so there was a lot of back and forth between the 2 cities. It was about a 5-hour drive because they're repairing the highway, and just not a convenient situation for them. But she decided, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to prepare myself. And when you hear Carmen's heart for the kids that she's now working with in San Pedro, because she started in January of this year, her own program called Resilientes, or the Resilient. Her heart beats for seeing resilience built in the life of kids who live on kind of the border of the city. They're called the bordes communities, where a lot of the houses are kind of made out of scrap metal, scrap wood. They're by the river. There's usually a lot of flooding. A lot of those kids don't go to school. She has invested this whole past year and wants to invest her life in serving these kids. She has partnered with her church in San Pedro to serve them every day and invite a place for them to come and have a safe place to grow, to know the Lord, to grow in resilience despite their circumstances. And she just continues to live it out despite the hardships of being apart from her husband for a year, of having to step down from a job, of taking a risk to start something new, be an entrepreneur.